Okay, good night or good afternoon, I don't know. So I want to thank to the organizers to invite me to give this talk. And okay, I'm going to talk about something that maybe you are not very familiar, that is like the brain and behavior and overall perception. So if, as Descartes said, we think, so we exist. But maybe if an empirist will come before, we will think, or we will say, we perceive, so we think, and then we exist. Our environment is very rich in sensory signals, in a very variety of energy signals that our sensory system have, and the human body has evolved to codify. Like, for example, the sounds across the audition, images, vision, and textures, touch. These are some examples. But classically, these modalities have been considered to be very individual, not related. However, during the last years, this specificity of each sensory modality has been denied. And we can see that the interaction between all the sensory modalities is very rich and is, in most of the time, synergic. For example, imagine that you don't know what is a ventriloquist. And you go to the show, and for example, and you are deaf, imagine that you cannot hear, and I ask you where the sound is coming from. So probably, as you see the mouth of the puppet moving, you will say, after several trials, that the sound is coming from there, because you cannot hear it, so you use the visual information. And now imagine that you are blind. So I ask you where the sound is coming from. So you will probably say, after some trials, something like this kind of distribution. The funny thing comes when I ask you where, and you can see and you can hear where the sound is coming from. So the audiovisual combination, then your spatial location of the sound will be in some place like this. This is called the ventriloquist's illusion. Okay, so we can fit we can obtain some Gaussian distribution from these unisensory inputs, and what is more interesting, from a Bayesian maximum likelihood optimization combination model, we can predict from the unisensory estimates what will be the final outcome of the integration. So we can say that the brain computes the reliabilities of each sensory modality before combining it. Then the final estimate is calculated by the reliability weighted average of these unisensory estimates, and always what is very important is that this final estimate is more precise. As you can see, the variability is lower in the multimodal estimate. So this leads to several benefits, like for example, we have attentional benefits when we have audiovisual or multisensory combinations. Our attention resources are better driven to the position where the stimulus is produced, or we can estimate better sizes or where our arms are in a space, etc. And also, we have some improvements in detection. So, for example, it has been demonstrated that visual threshold can be improved if we add an accessory sound with a visual presentation. Of course, there are some neurophysiological and neuroimaging correlates, and it has been found in the brain, in the human brain, that there are some areas that are not classically sensory areas, like the visual cortex or the auditory cortex, that are convert inputs from the sensory areas. Also, there are direct connections between the unisensory cortices, between the auditory and the visual, and some magic neurons that are called the multisensory neurons. These neurons that initially were found in the superior colliculus of cats have some kind of features that is, for example, that if we present in the same receptive field of a multisensory neuron a visual and an auditory stimulus in temporal congruence, we will have a non-linear summation of the responses. So this will be, when it's presented to the visual input, they respond like this. When it's presented to the auditory, the multisensory neuron responds like this. But when we present all together and in the same receptive field, the final spiking is more than linear. So the inverse effectiveness is another law, but I'm not going to explain it. I don't have time. And there is also initial response enhancement. So the latencies are decreased when we present 2 inputs at the same time. So we are faster also. So anyway, there are some remain outstanding questions at this moment. That is, these multisensory neurons, what function
Time's
have?
up.
Also, the binding problem is that how, having so many sensory signals at the same time, how our brain is able to combine them or to solve the correspondence between all the sensory modalities, and we have one unique perception of the world. And if are these multisensory skills innate or we learn it during our life? What are the specific functions of some neuroanatomical areas, structures? And it will be interesting also to establish some models that could predict the behavior, but at low neuronal level. So that's all. Thank you for your attention, and I hope you understood what I said.